Hello and welcome to episode 1208 of The Sleeper and the Bust. It is Friday, August 18th. I'm your host, Paul Sporer, joined this morning by Justin Mason. Justin, good morning, sir.
Good morning. How you doing?
I'm doing pretty well. About to hit the weekend here. We are fully in the dog days. Football's creeping, which both of us like, but also get annoyed by the creep. It's August now, though. I totally get it. But yeah, I'm doing well. How about yourself?
Man, after last night, I'm doing fantastic. Last softball game of the year, and my team going up the standings. I love to see it.
On a six gamer?
Yeah, like Lance Lynn pitching well, Zach Gallen
We're going to
pitching
talk about that
well,
guy.
C.J. Abrams and Sal Frelick just stealing bases left and right, and
On a
uh,
pinch hit for
yeah,
Abrams, by the way. He comes in, gets murked, got hit, steals two bases for you. So you're making moves on a 6-day slate. That's huge. I like just the fact I got Justin Casas homer yesterday. I thought that was a good day on a 6-gamer. You're actually out there making moves. That's huge. You're moving up in the overall
yeah. I'm seventh overall right now.
in the
I
auction
don't
championship,
in
right?
the auction championship. Yeah, Dave Potts, who friend of ours, really great guy and great fantasy player in the industry. He's been in first overall for a while. I don't think I'm going to be able to catch him, but you never know.
You never
Clearly, you
know.
have nights like this, get a bunch of
Yeah,
those in a row, and all of a sudden I might be up there. So, chasing the dream and hoping I can take down a few titles.
that's fantastic, man. You are having a wonderful season, and you know you beat yourself up way too much about your season last year, and you came back and said, "I'm not going to have that crap again."
Mm-hmm.
So that's awesome. We're going to get into some things here. We got a big call up. We're going to talk about your boy Lance Lynn because he's better than ever. We'll put some 3 up, 3 down with pitching and then talk about some of the questionable two-start guys depending on league format. Let's get right into the call up. Mason Wynn coming up for the Cardinals. Obviously, they've had a disastrous season just all around, but Mason Wynn is an exciting young player who could definitely make a difference for them, in the near future, including even perhaps this year. 18 homers, 17 steals, 288 average at AAA. An electric player. We've seen him at the Arizona Fall League. In fact, last year we did. This guy could be an impact guy immediately. The 21-year-old Mason Wynn. Do you see him as somebody as a must get if he comes up today, which is what the rumor, everything says he's going to? He'll be eligible for NFBC bids this weekend. Is Mason Wynn somebody to go for?
I think so. I think this is one of the few impact call-ups rest of the way, especially on the hitting side, especially because he can impact the game in pretty much all 5 categories. I do
Mm-hmm.
wonder how much power he's going to show early on in his career. It's a pretty big park.
He's a
And
wiry guy too.
I think mostly, he's got a beautiful swing. Like, I think mostly he's kind of got like gap power. He doesn't really have over the fence power. So, but he can steal bases. He makes a lot of contact. And he's going to play every day. They just lost Newt Bar. I think he's going to be in the lineup pretty much every day. We're going to see a few more of these call-ups just because we're now getting to the point where players can retain their rookie eligibility for next year,
Mm-hmm.
which is important for clubs trying to get that extra draft pick because their players finish well enough in the Rookie of the Year voting. So, but I think Wynn is probably going to be the most impactful, or has the potential to be the most impactful rest of the way.
Yeah, because he has game-changing ability to kind of do anything. If he happens to club a few homers, Mason Wynn could be a massive player because the expectation is that he'll at least be stealing, and that's Mason with a
Yeah.
Y. You want to guess what his middle name is?
Uh,
You never will.
Paul.
That'd be amazing. It's Blaze.
Yeah.
Mason Blaze Lynn.
Nice.
That's just a
Yeah.
kick-ass name, dude. He has
Mm-hmm.
to be good just based off of that. So I think he's somebody that you're going to look at in a lot of formats. Probably still not like chasing him in 10s unless we see something from Mason Wynn. But I think 12s and deeper, he's definitely somebody who could be a fill-in for you. Going to be playing shortstop, so middle infielder there if that's what you're looking for. Mason Wynn. Let's talk about Lance Lynn here as we kind of get a little rhyming scheme going. And listen, I say he's your boy, and I fully give you that. But as a show, we stuck with him all year through thick and thin. There might have been a time where we're like, if you're cutting him, we get it. It's like a 6.5 ERA. But us specifically, we both have him. we struggled to even get him out of our lineups at his worst moments. And I don't really even say that to brag. It could have hurt. He could have just kept giving up homers, but it was like just one of those things where it was really hard to get away from Lance Lynn, because when you watch the starts, or even when you just check the box scores, you saw elements of quality in damn near every start. I happened to watch a bunch of his starts. So even some of these like 5-6 earned run outings, I'm like, he was basically himself outside of 4 pitches or outside of 1 inning. And it was always just like so close. Nobody's surprised that he goes out to the Dodgers. Boom, instantly turns it around. All those positive elements that we're seeing, they're consistent throughout his starts now. 144 ERA, 088 whip in his 4 starts with the Dodgers for Lance Lynn, and a beautiful, beautiful battle last night with Corbin Burns. I had a great time watching that game. I imagine you were at softball, but I suggest a rewatch today if you get an opportunity, because they just battled each other for 7 scoreless apiece. It was awesome. But how have you been feeling? You've obviously been feeling good, but what's been your outlook on Lance Lynn since getting to the Dodgers? And does this build your trust for him next year? Because obviously he's getting up there in age, but he's a guy we've both been fans of for several years now, and it's hard to get away from Lance Lynn. What do you think?
Well, I was able to watch a lot of this game because I had the late game, and even though I was at the park,
okay.
like I just brought it up on my phone. The service wasn't great, so it was a little grainy. Lynn, when Lynn first got traded to the Dodgers, it was all like, oh, he's got the A's first. This is going to be the turnaround. And then he gave up 3 earned runs on, I think it was like back-to-back.
All homers. Yeah.
Home runs or something like that. And like, I was like, oh no, Lance Lynn is still broken if the A's are hitting 3 bombs off of him. But I mean, outside of, just those 3 bombs, and even in that game, he went 7. So like the 3 didn't hurt you nearly as much as it might have if he had gone, 5. He's been just the guy we kind of expected. I thought coming in the season he was going to be a top 25 starter. He finished really, really strong last year after a rough start. We kind of blamed the rough start on, coming off of injury. I don't know. I know this is like a really bad narrative type thing, but you got to wonder like how much of just being in Chicago was a problem for him.
I mean, it's hard not to think there could be something there, right? You don't want to go too far with it unless a player says something, but there is that element of like,
well,
he suck here anyway.
He kind of did say something. So I don't know if did you see Kenyon Middleton's comments?
Oh, that's right. Yeah, I did. And he said that Keenan Middleton said nothing wrong.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically, he's Keenan Middleton, the middle reliever who's now with I think the Yankees basically said there's nothing going on with Chicago in terms of leadership, order, anything. It's just, it sucks, basically, is what he said. They presented that to Lance Lynn on a podcast, and he basically all he said was, I see no lies. That's not directly what he said, but he just said, I co-sign what Middleton is saying there. So yeah, you're right. He did basically say Chicago sucked. And I mean, based on their record, based on their underwhelming, performance against expectations, that checks out.
Yeah. And I mean, Lance Lynn just seems like one of those guys that really gets influenced by the people around him. I mean, he's a real emotional guy on the mound. And so you got to wonder, just like change of scenery, what that does for him. Now, the question becomes, the Dodgers are not picking up his, I think, $15 million option or whatever it is for next season.
I highly doubt it. I mean, they're going to be remaking their rotation. Maybe there's a world where if he's like the playoff hero or whatever, but I do doubt it. So then you're talking, well, where's Lance Lynn go? And I guess my guess is you're gonna say that's gonna determine your interest.
Yeah. The nice thing is, even if he finishes strongly, I mean, unless someone jokingly, I think in the pull hitter Discord last night said he's gonna be World Series MVP or something, right?
Like, of course. Like he's winning the MVP of one of the playoff series. I totally agree with that. It's exactly how it's gonna play out.
So unless something like that happens, he should be fairly affordable. He's going to be pretty cheap, I think, in the market, definitely. And so in that case, I'll take a gamble no matter what.
Yeah, I think I got no issues with that. With Lance Lynn, I'll probably be back in next year. We'll kind of see where the price is. But right now, he's been wonderful. If for some reason he's still available in your league, like a 10-teamer, maybe. I doubt it. But he does have a 5.60 composite ERA. So sometimes things slip through the cracks in shallower leagues. because people get caught up looking at those composite numbers. But I doubt he's available. Obviously, do your due diligence just to make sure. Let's get a little Tiger centric here. There hasn't been a lot to talk about for the Tigers this year. I want to talk about our boys Spencer Torkelson and Riley Green, both playing very well here in the summer. Could throw in Kerry Carpenter there too, but he's on a different level. He's kind of a rising guy, that hasn't been as well known. Green and Torkelson, of course, are the franchise foundations, and they're both playing well. Let's start with Torkelson, Justin, because he started his breakout kind of in June, but it was like literally power only. He hit 7 homers, but also hit 196. So the ball was going over the fence, but the hits weren't falling. If I recall, he still had some tough luck moments where some hard hits that found gloves type of thing. And so that's why the batting average was so crappy. Then July, 4 homers, 247 average, so a little bit more balanced there. And we're not just going off batting average as the sole driver here, but of course it is a fantasy category, so it does matter. And then this month, 6 homers and a 235 average. So the average isn't necessarily there in any of these months, but it's better than that 196. I don't think that's who Spencer Torkelson is. But now we're talking about 17 homers in the last 3.5 months for Spencer Torkelson. Is this the power breakout that people have been hoping for? I don't want to overstress that too, because he had exactly 1 year. But is this Torkelson coming alive and putting himself on the scene as a real fantasy player for next year?
I mean, I think it is. And I mean, Torkelson's a guy that I've written up multiple times in my buy low article, including earlier this week, or at the beginning of this week, when I said, like, listen, the average is, his average is, 2 something, or, low twos, and his XBA is 260. Like, this guy should be a 250, 260 hitter with all this power, and not a guy who's hitting 220 something. Now it's up to 230 because he's had such a nice week.
Some of it's the park too, by the way, right? He'll lace some, but that spacious damn Comerica, somebody will be able to chase it down. Whereas it would have been a hit in 25 other parks type of deal.
Yeah, I mean, he's never going to be a guy who's like running a 300 BABIP or something like that. So you don't want to like look at the BABIP and be like, well, he's getting unlucky. Well,
yeah,
he might be a little bit, but the average should be a little bit better than it is. But the power metrics are fantastic. I mean, we're talking about really nice exit velocities, 52% hard hit percentage. So, I mean, I think you're seeing everything you want to see. And if he was maybe on a different team that was a little bit more competitive, maybe people would be paying attention to it a little bit more. But I think he's kind of under the radar still a little bit.
I think so too.
Which is nice because first base is not as strong as it used to be.
No, it's really not. And, we thought maybe this year it would get strengthened a little bit. That hasn't really come to fruition. Some guys have popped off, but they've only really kind of countered some of the guys who have done nothing, or not nothing, but that have underwhelmed. Like Vlad Jr. is the 13th ranked first baseman. So again, that's not nothing, but that's under expectations for sure. So you're looking at Torque, by the way. He's ranked 18th on the year. And I'm curious, is he going to be somebody that you are targeting next year, do you think? Because the price probably will be a bit lower. I do think this is getting a bit hidden in Detroit, and the low batting average is at 230, as you mentioned, for Torkelson. I do think that'll kind of keep the price in check. So do you think he's somebody who will be like your CI util target?
Yeah, I think,
or could be one of your targets, I should say.
Yeah, I definitely think he will, especially with the lack of depth at first base and third base. I think he's going to be a guy that I'm looking to pick up, after pick 150 for a fair price. I think he's got 30 home run power in that bat, and maybe next year is the year he gets there. Unless he just has an outstanding September. He could still get there this year. If he gets to 30, we're going to be in some trouble in terms of his price, because I think people 100%. Are going to start to really come around and be like, okay, well, maybe hit 235, but 30 home runs is 30 home runs, especially considering like how down on power we are right now. So
absolutely, that would be enough to really put Torkelson on the radar, because that'd be 9 more homers here in addition to the 17 he's hit since June. So if you're talking 26 homers from June on, that would start to capture people's attention. But we'll see where it goes with Torque. I totally agree that he's priced to buy, and barring just a crazy surge. Now let's talk Riley Green. He gets more of the credit and the hype with Detroit, which is obvious because he had a better season last year. I think he's seen more positively, but I've got them kind of neck and neck here as two guys that could really carry my favorite team for a little while here. 11 homers, 6 steals, 309 average. The average is what I really like to see this year because I was getting a little bit nervous about the average projection for Green. It was always there. Everyone's saying, oh, he's going to hit for average, going to hit for average. Like, does he strike out too much? Does he take enough walks? I was a little skeptical myself, but Riley Green's having a wonderful year. Is he somebody that you think is putting himself on the fantasy map as a go-to type player here? Do the Tigers have two really good hitters now?
I'm less enthused by Riley Green. I mean, he's running a 4.10 BABIP, which feels like maybe he's just getting a tad bit lucky. The
Little Austin Jackson
yeah,
action there. Remember that first year he ran like a 4 something BABIP for most of the year.
yeah. I mean, the XBA says he's getting lucky, but not that much. That he's 299 XBA. So,
Okay.
um, the in zone contact is a fair amount below league average, and he does hit the ball hard. So I think that can maybe make up a little bit for a little bit of subpar in zone contact skills, but I don't know. He's not a guy that has like that carrying tool in fantasy. Like he doesn't have prodigious power. He doesn't have, a ton of speed. He kind of just reminds me of like kind of a prime Melky Cabrera, um,
Oh,
which is fine, but it's
sure.
not. It's not like, we thought this was going to be a star in terms
Hmm.
of like fantasy and MLB. I just don't quite see that. I just see a guy who is a really, really good accumulator. And if he can stay healthy, he had a little trouble staying healthy this year. If he can stay healthy, I think he can be pretty valuable in fantasy. I don't see like that big next step coming where all of a sudden, oh, he's returning, second, third round value. I think he's more of kind of a, eighth, seventh round guy. And I think there are going to be people next year like, Riley Green breakout 2024. I don't know that I buy that.
Okay, I think it's fair, and the park can be a little tough there
Yeah.
too. That can maybe also stifle some of the power for Green. Somebody that he kind of reminds me of is like a Hunter Pence because you mentioned the
Yeah.
accumulator aspect too, and that kind of fits to a T there. If Green does end up putting up some 150 game seasons here, the way Pence was able to for most of his career. This was in a different era, so he even has some 162s out there, which is very rare these days. But Pence was known as an accumulator, which is sometimes used as a negative, but going out there playing every day and being a consistent 154 plus game guy as Pence was for looks like a 7 year run, that's super valuable, right? The cliche is the best availability, or I screwed it. The best ability is availability. And so, yeah, I think Hunter Pence is kind of one of the names that jumps to mind for me with Green, which it isn't a dig, but it does kind of level set your expectations. So I think I'm closer to you where I'm like, I don't think I'm going to have Riley Green shooting up my board and kind of reaching for him because I don't see where the big fantasy season comes from. If he falls to me at a reasonable price, I'll take him as a nice accumulating outfielder because that's what I'm hoping for
Yeah.
too.
I don't think being an accumulator is a bad thing at all. Like I like accumulators
Me
because
too.
they're typically guys you can rely upon.
Mm-hmm. High
And
floor.
you look at the guys who win like some of these big money overalls or
Oh my
these
God.
big leagues, and they're almost always leading their league in plate appearances and innings pitched. Like
And
it's
boring ass
important,
players.
yeah, and boring as players. And Riley Green's one of those guys. I think the only problem with Riley Green from that context is that he was such a big prospect that people, anytime a guy is a big prospect, people are always going to expect them to make big jumps. And we know that growth isn't linear and that guys sometimes, it's more of kind of a slow ascension or they never truly ascend to the levels we thought they would. And there's nothing wrong with that, but the price in the ADP tends to reflect what people's hopes and dreams are for people as opposed to what
For
their
sure.
actual production looks like.
For sure. And we've been part of that too. We talked about the
Yep.
Jordan Walker situation from this season, and
Jared
so
Kelnick.
yep, it definitely happens with guys that we like too. So we're not just saying that other people are the only ones that make this mistake, but I think there could be a little bit of a mistake on Green if people push too high. I'm still
Yeah.
holding some of that skepticism. He is a great line drive hitter, though. That's part of why he has that great BABIP, and it should fuel positive BABIPs or high BABIPs going forward. But 410 is just very very difficult
Yeah.
to ever tag a guy with. And I did did mention Kerry Carpenter briefly, because again, he's not on the same level as Torque and Green in terms of expectation, but he has been a really nice find for the Tigers here. 16 homers. He missed some time as well, so 16 homers in 77 games with a 286 average. Really, really like what Kerry Carpenter's doing. Tigers got 3 nice middle of the order hitters now that they can kind of build around, and that feels good. At least something coming positive from this year. And, maybe Eduardo sticks around, right? He didn't want to get traded. Maybe he doesn't opt out either. And so then they would have their ace, 3 good hitters, and something to kind of build on there for Scott Harris. Let's play some 3 up, 3 down. We're going to go 3 up with the young pitchers right now that are surging. And we're going to start with Bobby Miller for LA. We talked about their veteran, Lance Lynn, that they picked up, but one of their young guns has also been a big part of their surge. And by the way, it is worth noting that the Dodgers are surging and they're kind of back to being the behemoth that we always talk about them being. And you and I had pointed out, coming into the year and even early in the year, hey, they're not quite the behemoth that they've always been. They've now morphed back into that. I think I forget what the number was yesterday. They said, I think they've won like 35 out of 47 or something. It's some crazy number like that. I forget exactly what it was, but they are on a tear right now. And it's because they're getting some good pitching. Kershaw's back, looks great. Lynn killing it. Bobby Miller, who we're talking about first here in 3 up, has also been wonderful. I think I made a joke. I can't remember if it was in my SP chart on a stream or on a pod. When you do so much crap, you forget where you say stuff. Bobby Miller strikes me as somebody. You talked about how Lance Lynn's going to have like a World Series MVP. I'm worried that Bobby Miller is going to have a killer playoff and his price is just going to be through the roof from next year. And I'm probably just projecting the Walker Buehler playoff tax from a few years ago, but I kind of see the potential there for Bobby Miller. But he is absolutely rolling of late. In particular, you look at when he came back from the All-Star break. And he only threw 4 2/3, but only allowed 1 run that game. Hasn't allowed more than 3 in any of his 6 starts. 31 innings of a 2.59 ERA with a just over 1 WHIP for Bobby Miller. How do you feel about the young righty for the Dodgers? Is he somebody that you think can emerge into an ace here? Have you seen enough from him that you are buying into Bobby Miller going forward?
Yeah, I think I have. This is a guy I really, really like. I mean, I like a lot of the rookie pitcher crop kind of carrying over into next season. I think this is very reminiscent of like the sophomore years for guys like Shane McClanahan, Alek Manoah, guys we're going to talk about here in a little bit in the next segment. So hopefully they don't have the same future as some of these guys, but where all these guys were like, kind of drafted just outside the top 100 the year after their rookie season. And then they made huge jumps into the top 10 of starting pitchers, right? And I think that is going to be a lot of what we see coming into next year, that we're going to, there's the Bryce Millers and the Andrew Abbotts and the Bobby Millers are going to be
Woo.
Woo. It depends on what the elbow looks like, right?
Well, that's true. That's true. That's true. So, and then the next guy we're going to talk about will also be included in that.
Yeah.
But yeah, Bobby Miller, he's been great. And again, I can really see a dominant stretch either here in the stretch run or in the playoffs that just really boosts his price up.
I just love the pitch mix on Bobby Miller. Like he's not like these, a guy like Andrew Abbott is, he's kind of, really focuses on 2 pitches. But Miller, like, man, he's just got this complete arsenal.
It's like 5 pitches, 4 or 5, depending on how you break up. Like 2 fastballs, fastball sinker, or 4-seam sinker, but then slider, curve, change that he spreads out. He has an arsenal, which is really nice to see from a young arm like Bobby Miller.
He's really becoming a pitcher as opposed to being a thrower. And I think, one of the criticisms of Miller coming into it was like, hey, he just kind of throws. He's not really a pitcher. He hasn't learned how to sequence. He hasn't learned, but I mean, the Dodgers have done just a really, really great job with his development, kind of teaching him how to pitch a game. Will Smith, I'm sure, is, a huge part of that behind the plate. But it's just been very, very impressive. And I think that he feels like one of the guys that is a little underrated in comparison to the crop of other kind of rookie pitchers. I don't think he should be. I think he should be closer to the top of that pile as opposed to buried somewhere in the middle of it.
Yeah, I totally agree there. And your point about how Bobby Miller's already looking more like a pitcher than a thrower, despite having that sort of thrower tag. And I agree with it. In fact, even right now, he averages 99.2 on his fastball. So you're thinking this guy's going to come up and just blow everyone away. But he's really, really developed an interesting arsenal, and I love what Bobby Miller's doing. And if the price isn't too crazy, I'll see myself in on the Bobby Miller sweepstakes next year.
Henry,
I see we have a question here.
Yeah,
Henry, go
Henry
ahead.
in the chat, he's asking, since we've been in on the Tigers, would you prefer Bobby Miller or Tarek Skubal next year? It's Miller for me. Just a better team, I think. I think Skubal's stuff might be better.
What about at a cheaper price, though, if you factor in price? That's where I think I would lean Skubal. Yeah. I think it could be like a 3-4 round difference. Now, Skubal himself is somebody.
To get both.
True. Give me the old, why not both gif. I do wonder. Yeah, I wonder where Skubal's price is going to be. If they're equal, I think I got to go Miller, too, just because better team context, right?
Absolutely.
But if we're talking multiple rounds difference, I think I then push over towards Skubal because I think he can match Bobby Miller in terms of pure talent. And then, the wins will be different, but I'll take the round discount.
Park and Division is better for Skubal. So
exactly.
I think that's right. I think if all things being equal, I would take Miller. So if this is like a keeper situation where you've got both guys for $3 and you want to figure out which one to keep, I probably keep Miller. But in a draft situation, Skubal probably likely ends up on more of my teams.
Yep. I think that's exactly how I see it right now with those two. Great question there from Henry. Asking about those two. Let's go over to Grayson Rodriguez here as we continue 3 up. And we have talked a lot about him in recent pods. I think mostly as like a 2-step guy as I'm looking over the times that he's been brought up, as opposed to like a real focus on what's been going on with him. Grayson Rodriguez, since his recall, has been awesome. You talk about another guy, young guy, who has turned a corner quickly on things. And, there was talk like when he first came up, I think his very first start was pretty good at Texas. Then Oakland of all teams and the White Sox roughed him up. Then he got good again with back-to-back starts against Detroit. Had a really, really rough May with, good and bad opponents kind of hitting him and nothing really going right for him. Gets sent out, comes back after a 51-day demotion, and has a 3.03 ERA. And again, just over a 1 whip here. I think it's just under 1. 35 base runners in 35 2/3. 30 Ks, so the dominance hasn't been there. It's under a K per inning. But I'll take all this other great stuff here. And I've seen 3 of these starts. I saw the Tampa Bay start, the Toronto one, and the Houston one for Grayson Rodriguez. I watched all 3 of those and just really impressed with how he's learned kind of on the job this year, on the fly, and really turned himself into a quality option to where they're already kind of getting the dividends of that potential frontliner. I love the future for Grayson Rodriguez. He has a 5.44 ERA, 141 whip on the composite. Do you think that will keep his price down at all?
Probably not. I think it's just going to be, he's too big of a prospect. He was the number 1 pitching prospect coming into baseball this year, and I just think too many people are going to be talking about how well he's pitched after the break, right? He's going to be on second half, standouts lists and stuff like that. I think he's probably going to be the leader of all the rookie pitchers in terms of where people are taking him. So my guess is probably just inside of the top 100. It's warranted. That being said, like, he's been pretty lucky too. Like, he's got a low BABIP since coming back, and he's only given up 1 home run. In spite of the fact, listen to this schedule since he came back.
Dude, that's been the best part, by the way, is that he's gone through this crazy schedule. Go ahead.
He got the Dodgers at home, Tampa Bay on the road, the Yankees at home, Toronto on the road, Houston at home, and then San Diego in his most recent start. Only 1 home run through all 6 of those starts. Part of it is I think the Orioles must have sat him down and told him, hey, throw in the zone. Like, your stuff is good enough, that you even if you don't be afraid of contact because you've got a good home park, and the defense behind you will pick you up, and that's what he's been doing. 46% zone percentage, and a lot of ground balls. He's not getting a ton of strikeouts, but I think
But
those will come.
I think so too. 14% swinging strike rate for
Yeah.
Grayson Rodriguez in these 6 starts. Just to put that into some context, in 4 of his last 5 before the demotion, he was at 9% or lower, between 8 and 9%. And he had one spike there of a good swinging strike rate. So he's at 13.5, call it 14%. You know the easiest shorthand is to multiply that by 2 to get you an expected strikeout rate of 28%. And he's been well below that because I think he's not trying for strikeouts too. I think there's been an approach change where he's like, okay, I don't have to strike everybody out. I can let my defense do some things. I'm not just going to go for these, chase sliders here on 0-2, the classic 0-2, waste 2 pitches. All of a sudden you're 2-2. Now you miss a close one. It's 3-2. Holy shit. Now you're panicked, right?
Yeah.
It can snowball so quickly on you as a young pitcher, even as an old pitcher, but they are more capable of dealing with it. But a young pitcher can find themselves backed into a corner very quickly. Grayson Rodriguez is attacking instead. And like you said, it has resulted in some great things, but also some favorable, some good luck with the home run suppression. Really love what he's doing. And I do mention the 5.14 or 5.44 ERA. He does also have, 6 weeks to shave that back down. And if he continues at this clip, it might only be like 420 by season's end, and then nobody will balk at taking that. So even if it does remain high, I think your point makes sense that people will prop it up and do articles of saying, hey, don't look at this composite ERA. Grayson Rodriguez is actually a stud. And so I think he's going to be very expensive next year. I'm not necessarily out on it, though. I got to see where the price is at. I'm down to pay for premium young pitching. So if it's priced fairly enough, high but fair, I could be down to pick up Grayson Rodriguez next year for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, let's talk another guy, another young pitcher who's pitching very well that we've talked about on this show that we like, but is not quite on the Bobby Miller, Grayson Rodriguez prospect path, and that is Chase Silseth out with the Angels. He has really come on for them. This is another frustrating thing about this dumbass team, man, is they've had some really good things work for them this year, including Silseth's emergence, and they're just wasting it. And that pisses me off. I know we talk about it all the time, but I just want this stupid team in the playoffs so we can see Trout and Ohtani in October, and it's not going to happen again this year. And thankfully, Ohtani will be gone from there. Yeah. But I really do love Chase Silseth. He's come back. He's found himself in the rotation, been absolutely killing it out there. Is Chase Silseth somebody that you believe in, not just here in the short term, but going forward?
Not as much as I would like. It's the home run rate is concerning. The walk rate is concerning. I think he's getting lucky in the BABIP department. I think he's getting lucky in the strand rate. Do I think he's going to be a bad pitcher? No, but I don't think he is on the same level or even close to the same level as the Bobby Millers and the Grayson Rodriguez's or the Andrew Abbotts and the Bryce Millers. I think he's a cut below. That being said, I don't think he's going to be extremely expensive next year.
Because he doesn't have that sort of hype train for Chase Silseth. I agree with that part for sure.
And I do wonder, with Ohtani likely pitching somewhere else next year, do the Angels go back to a traditional 5-man rotation? Because that changes the value on all their starting pitchers. 100%. Just getting that second start every once in a while that you just never get in LA with the Angels because of that 6-man rotation. So maybe I feel a little bit better if I see the price next year and I go, oh, he's going outside the top 225 picks and they're now a 5-man rotation. I'll feel a little bit more comfortable pulling the trigger, but right now I just think there's enough there to tell me hey, there's going to be a fair amount of regression that if people are really excited about him coming into next season, I won't be able to get him.
Okay, well, I'll be one of those people that's getting excited about Chase Silseth. I hold him in a bit more esteem here. We're a little split. I love that he pounds the ground balls there. You have capable enough defense to kind of turn that into outs. That can certainly help keep your BABIP in check. Obviously, ground balls can lead to more BABIP, so it might sound counterintuitive there. But if you have the defense turning them into outs, and you have a high enough ground ball rate, which right now I wouldn't say that it is. It's at 54% for Chase Silseth. Usually once you kind of get into that upper 50s, low 60s range, that's when you're really positively impacting your BABIP there. Otherwise, if you kind of live in, say, the 48 to 55 range of ground ball rate. It is good. It is more ground balls than fly balls, but it doesn't necessarily help your BABIP the way we've seen it with guys like, say, like a Dallas Keuchel at his peak or whatever, when he was just keeping the ball on the ground 62, 63% of the time. So there is that, but I love the swing and miss for Silseth. That's really been the major factor here that we've seen as a starter that that has made me so happy with the emergence that Silseth has had. 15% swinging strike rate in these 4 starts. Now, it is also a small sample, so I will freely acknowledge that we need to see more here from Silseth because it hasn't been that much, but it's been high impact signature games. 12 strikeouts against Seattle, 10 strikeouts against the Yankees, although that barely counts because they're so freaking terrible at baseball. But I like 5 shutout innings in Houston in his most recent start because that offense is starting to click again with everyone coming back. So, I think Silseth will be priced to buy. I think you're concerned that he might get pushed up too high, or worried that anybody might push him up too high won't be there. So I think you'll be more in on him than you think, just because the price will be affordable.
I hope so, but you know who he reminds me of, not in terms of like his like the way he pitches or his skill set or anything like that. Is teammate Patrick Sandoval, where he was everybody's favorite sleeper. And then all of a sudden, by the time we got to the main event, he was going at like pick 140. And because every single person in the industry that people listen to were going, oh man, I really like Patrick Sandoval. I really like
291 ERA last year. Shut up.
And so like
you can just say me.
It was you. It was you. It was Scott Genstad. It was Nick Pollock. It was like, it was a lot of the same, I think Eno was in on him. It was a lot of the people that move ADPs, right? Like, and so that is the concerning part.
Silseth won't get that high though, right? Like, because Sandoval had some history. He had a little bit more history behind it. That's a fair concern if it happens, and I'll back off a Silseth at that point too if we start seeing him, top 150. And I guess, depending on how these final 5-6 weeks go, maybe. But I think he'll be a little bit overlooked and kind of forgotten in the rookie class, if I'm being honest. And that's where I'm going to pounce on somebody like Chase Silseth.
I hope you're right. I mean, for me, it is all going to be determined based on price. Like, if the price is cheap, if he's like pick 230, then I'm totally game. If he's pick 150, I'm out.
I think that's fair. Chase Silseth or JP France next year, who's, by the way, France has been insane despite having like 4 strikeouts all year. I mean, it's better than that. I'm being facetious. It's like 6.3 per 9. But what about France versus Silseth next year?
I think I don't know how France does this. Like
he'll be cheap too, because I think people will not believe in what France is doing.
France is going to be on the all like regression list.
Yeah,
like, right. Like every list that talks about like, oh, this guy got lucky. And I mean, I definitely think he is getting lucky, and I don't really understand exactly how he does it, but I also think he's one of those guys. Obviously not to the same skill level, but like he's a Kyle Hendricks type, right? Like he's a guy that beats out his ERA estimators because he is so good at placing the ball exactly where he wants to place it. And he's also got the Houston offense behind him. And so I think they're really, really close for me. I probably lean Silseth because of the strikeout upside, but I France might be the right answer. When I do my projections, I'll have a better idea, and I'm going to be starting those next month. For 2024. So I'll have a better idea next month on where I'm leaning, but I think I'm leaning Silseth right now just because as long as they're in a 5-man rotation, if it's a 6-man rotation, it'll definitely be France.
Yeah. Those supplemental starts, especially in weekly when you're getting those 2 steps, that is a big deal. And I agree with you that it's going to be intriguing to see if LA shifts back to standard 5-man and then Silseth is getting regular 2 starts. All right, let's go to 3 down, and let's talk Michael Kopech. Boy, I can't tell you how happy I am that I cut that guy months ago. That's been one of my favorite moves of the year, just from the stress standpoint. My antacid budget went down so much after I cut that clown. I don't understand. And it's the volatility start to start. I know you're still rolling with him. You've seen some of the good starts,
Hmm.
and he's on and off your bench. He's so freaking maddening, dude. But since the break now for Kopech, 6 starts with a 6.23 ERA, 23 walks and 19 Ks. That's right, I did not stutter. 23 walks, 19 Ks. We know the deal here with Kopech. Are you sure you should still be even holding him right now? I'm not even trying to be funny. Should he even be rostered in 15s right now? Michael Kopech.
I mean, I can totally understand if you dropped him. I look at the waiver wire in 15-team leagues, and I go, he's throwing, he's pitching, like he's like,
That
and
is
they're
fair. If you don't have someone to pick up, it's not worth just cutting somebody just to cut him. I agree with that.
and I for me specifically, I've actually optimized him fairly well as of late.
Okay.
The part that's hurt me was earlier on in the season, but like I've avoided the Atlanta start, I avoided the Milwaukee start. I'm not starting him today in Colorado. Like I've been very very smart about when I use him, but I think most people should not be rostering him. Like I think that I think your decision to cut and move on, yeah, has probably been great for your blood pressure, and it has not been
It's
great for
felt great.
mine. Yeah, I know I have texted you a number of times with expletives involving Michael Kopech either being on my bench when he pitches
When he pitches
well
well, yeah.
or being in my lineup when he doesn't. Um, every week, I just stress on whether or not I should be dropping Michael Kopech. Uh, Man, it's just so frustrating because you see the flashes of brilliance, like you see
Absolutely.
how good this stuff is at times. But man, the command, I'm pretty sure he's leading Major League Baseball in walks, which is
I totally
uh
believe that. Yeah.
yeah, I was actually trying to double check it real quick.
72. He leads the American League right now. 72 for Michael Kopech.
Okay.
Who the hell
So
has more? I'll look it up while you're talking. Go ahead.
yeah, having Lance Lynn and Michael Kopech on my team earlier in the season is the reason I'm not winning
Oh,
overalls right now. Like, I mean, and Alec Manoa,
I
we're
mean,
going to talk about here in a second. So,
yeah, those two have been, and Alec Manoa, by the way, ninth in walks. The leader, we should have known. Well, like once I tell you, you're like, oh yeah, duh. Blake Snell, 78,
oh,
but he has a
which is crazy
2.65
because
ERA with his walks.
yeah, that's
He's
one I'm
killing
not
it.
going. He's gonna go way too high next year. He's just gonna. I mean,
Oh yeah, because people are gonna
I
buy
love
back in.
Snell, but yeah. And I mean, he's not going to be in San Diego, which is a great place to pitch.
Mm-hmm.
I assume he's going to go sign somewhere else. So, yeah, Blake Snell is going to be on my do not draft list next. He was on
It,
that
it'll
this year.
it'll depend where he's going, but I wasn't really drafting him this year either. I felt like he was a little too expensive. Love Blake Snell too. Talked about how we're little internet friends on Twitch playing video games and whatnot. And I'll tell him to his face, say, hey man, I love you, you're my guy, but I didn't draft you this year, and he'll give me a hard time about it. He streams during the winter, so once the season ends, hopefully he gets back out on Twitch, and of course that's where he had his
Is he the
infamous
number
incident.
one? Is he going to be the number
Well,
one pitcher
besides
on the
Shohei,
market? I mean, yeah,
yeah,
Shohei's
that
not a
Shohei is
pitcher,
his own
so
thing, so
he's
yeah,
yeah.
I think so.
Kershaw. I'm looking right now. Yeah, Martin Perez.
In terms of
Uh,
like pure
oh,
1-to-1 inning, Kershaw, yeah, but then in terms of like bankability for a longer term contract, got to be Snell over him, right?
Julio Urias available.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Now we don't know what the Dodgers are going to do, right? They're obviously
Oh,
everyone's
Aaron
rumoring
Nola available.
like straight up available, or is there like an
Yeah,
option or anything? Oh, okay. So
no.
that'll be a big one. And then as we talked about, Lynn will probably be out there too.
It's a really fun, Paxton,
Paxton
Montgomery,
rebuilt his value.
Giolito. Yeah, I mean, this is a pretty fun free agent class.
There's some
So,
talent out there. Jordan Montgomery,
yeah,
he's improving his stock. Kenta Maeda is old, but he's been pitching very, very well. Michael Lorenzen boosting
yeah,
his stock with no hitters and what have you. Sonny Gray, Lucas Giolito. Yeah, there's gonna be some pitching out there. Jack Flaherty on the
yeah.
right side of 30. So yeah, we'll see what happens with Snell. But he leads the league in walks, and Kopech leads the American League. So I actually cut Kopech really early, in late April. He has a 4.04 ERA since I cut him, but a 1.41 WHIP. I do not miss that. I have no problem having cut him. And if you think about the butterfly effect, I baited somebody into picking him up, and guess who they cut? You'll never guess. It was Nick Pivetta. And guess who picked up Nick Pivetta? That's right. That's right, this guy.
Very nice.
So, you know, if you look at my Pavetta or my Kopech cut, it really has layers and works out a lot better when you realize who I now have. Now, it wasn't directly. I didn't immediately get Pavetta after that, but I've had Pavetta for this hot run there. So then, you know, sometimes you got to brag about a move that works, and other times you got to eat shit on a move that doesn't work, like drafting and propping up Alek Manoah like this channel did. Damn, dude. Sent back down because he's really not working again. Let's not even worry about this year. It's been complete utter dog shit. This is a pure 2024 outlook situation. Again, we've been friendly about Manoah. We're fans. We like him. We believe in his game. What does this 87 innings of hell do to you? Can he come out of this? Is it too hard to see how he gets out of this? Because we're in it right now, and we're going to throw him out completely. What's the latest for you with Manoah when you look at him for 2024 specifically?
I mean, he's going to be free next year, right? Like I know we make
damn near.
I know people hate the oh, he's free comment, but I feel like he's got to be free.
If we're talking free, we're saying like
outside top 300
late 200s, early 300s, right?
Yeah,
he has to go there for Manoah. He has to, right? There's no way.
There's been too much good pitching coming into the league, and I know we've lost a lot of good pitching too to injury, but yeah, I can't imagine he's not going to be just such a cheap price that it's worth taking a gamble on, because you can drop him really, really easily if he comes out of the gate struggling. And that being said, like, there's nothing in the profile that tells me he's going to turn it around. Like, this is straight up like
you won't get anything from this
record. Yeah, like he's been atrocious, and like I'm sure there are other really good examples of this, but I have never, I do not remember ever seeing someone fall off in this manner. Usually with starting pitchers, it's like, hey, he was older and he aged, he got hurt, right? Like when we talk about bust, we talk about the guys who got Tommy John, or maybe there's some an older Lance Lynn type, right? Where it's like, oh, he was really good, but he really struggled in the first half, and that's what hurt him. Or like this is like straight up like skills degradation from a 20-something-year-old,
25 years old,
absolutely no sense. Like, it's just none of it makes sense to why
nobody saw this.
Yeah, like you have to wonder, like, and one of the big pluses for me was coming into the year, and it's something that was now I look at it and I go, well, that was dumb. Is like the dude's just got a fire in him, like and
I know you're gonna feel dumb for that now, but like I get that too, and I had the same thing, talking about that he got that dog in him type of thing, and like it's one of those unquantifiable things that you feel like, well, he can kind of get through adversity. And you're right that it's dumb in that it doesn't really carry anything, and we saw it evaporate completely. But I still have a hard time not getting vibes like that from players, right? We watch a ton of games. It's hard not to get like, oh, he's a hothead. He's an asshole. I don't like this guy. He doesn't know how to handle himself. Oh, this guy's cool under pressure. He handles everything in stride type of deal. I don't know how to fully get rid of those biases, to be honest.
And I mean, we usually go, oh, this is a guy like, hey, like, oh, we love the way he's on the mound. He's fire. And like you have to wonder like, how much of that actually hurt him this year? Like, he's an emotional guy out there, right? Like, and when things aren't going well, maybe they tend to snowball. And because he isn't able to stay calm, cool, and collected, like, how much of this has been in his head? With that,
For
like,
sure.
guys like that can turn around. Because, like, he gets a fresh slate next year. He comes out, starts pitching well. But I don't know, like, I don't. He's not one of those guys where he's going to end up on all my teams. I'm going to buy back.
No.
But I'll take some calculated shots because I think the price is going to be cheap enough where I can say, hey, like if it doesn't work out by the end of April, he's an easy cut.
Yeah, I think that's the case with Alek Manoah. It's just that you can take the gamble. The price is going to be there. So if you do want to get back in because you liked him enough in these first two good seasons, then take the shot. But don't overload. I agree. I wouldn't want to have a situation where he's on like 72% of my teams or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'll have at least one. We play enough multiple leagues that I'll get one share of Manoah just in case he comes all the way back and we find a gem for nothing.
You know where I won't have him next year is my effing Gladiator League.
Oh, God, no. I
That's
cannot
been a
imagine what he's doing to
nightmare.
Gladiator leagues.
I legit would be in first place in my league without Alec. Like if
At least
if I drafted you, I'd be in first place in my Gladiator League. Like
At least he got sent out now. He's not hurting you anymore. He's sent back down. So that part is at least good on Manoah. And then our final one in 3 down. This has been a very bleak 3 down, and it's not going to get any better here, folks, because we're talking Shane McClanahan, who we're not even talking 2024 outlook because it doesn't exist. I don't think he'll pitch enough. I mean, he might pitch a little in September at the very, very best. I'm putting out 24 altogether. So we're on the dynasty outlook here for McClanahan. So this is a very narrow focus, but if you play dynasty leagues, I'm curious, and I know you do, Justin, you play multiples. Where are you at? Do you buy somebody that's an entire year out, a year plus out right now? Even if it's somebody as good as Shane McClanahan, is it too risky to buy a pitcher who's that far away? Where do you currently stand on somebody like McClanahan who gets a late TJ, meaning it's going to eat up the entire next year? Is that a target you usually make in dynasty leagues, or is it too risky to even venture?
So, dynasty leagues for me, I used to be the person that like, hey, I'm going to try to win and I'm going to try to rebuild all at the same time, or I'm always trying to win. And while I always want to try to win, I really take a clear evaluation of what my team looks like nowadays, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I've got a number of dynasty league teams where my teams aren't good, right? And so I think what you have to do in a dynasty league is commit to either a long-term plan to, rebuild, or, hey, this is my competitive window and I'm going all in for it. So if you are in kind of the former, which is the long-term plan of a rebuild, I have no problem trading for a guy like Shane McClanahan. I think he is an ace, once he's back and healthy on the mound. And so, like, for instance, I'm in a dynasty league. It's a 3-sport dynasty league where, I've been kind of I won the first year, tore it down, and I've been rebuilding. I just traded for Jacob deGrom.
Oh, nice.
I know I'm not going to be competitive next year, but 2025, 2026, I should be. And so, I'm going to reach out to the guy in the league who has Shane McClanahan and see, hey, you can't use him. You might be competitive right now. Here's a piece that helps you win over the course of the next couple of seasons, and you give me the guy that'll help me win in 2025, 2026.
I like it.
I have no problem doing that because, I mean, the track record on Tommy John's, for the most part, is pretty good, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you get 3, 4, 5 years out of guys after TJ. So I've got no problem making that move for the long term. Just make sure, like I said, like, pick a strategy, pick a plan, and stick with it. Don't be the person that, like, kind of puts their feet in both waters, because you end up having a perpetual, like, 6th or 7th place team, and nobody wants that.
Exactly. I think that's the best point that you made on all of that, which was good, is commit. Whatever you do, go all the way with it. That's your strategy. You want to pick up guys like like Shane McClanahan, then do it. But if you want to be winning now, don't be like, okay, I'll also pick up McClanahan, but I'm in a win now right now. Yeah. One or the other, commit all the way. Totally agree. So, 3 up was Bobby Miller, Grayson Rodriguez, Chase Stillset. 3 down was Michael Kopech, Alek Manoah, and Shane McClanahan. Let's talk 2 steps for next week. Some of these guys, they're going to have different viability here. We'll start them in some leagues, sit them in others. Let's start with a guy who has had a colossal second half fade, but reeled everyone back in with 7 innings of one-hit ball against those lowly Yankees, and that's Bryce Elder. And in fact, he's actually done this really weird thing where, again, he's regressed hard. In fact, you go back to before the break, the start against Tampa Bay that kind of started things. He comes off the break, gives up another 7 runs, so back-to-back 7-run outings, but then kills Milwaukee twice in a row. Then the Cubs smoke him, the Pirates smoke him, and then the Yankees gem there. So if you look at it all together, it's 7 starts of awfulness, 6.37 ERA, but there's 3 gems mixed in there, and that just shows you how much the crap can outweigh the gems. And we talk about that consistently. Like, one dud can erase 2-3 gems in one fell swoop. So Bryce Elder gets the Mets and a trip to San Francisco. Coming off the big Yankee start, are you going for this? And if so, where with Bryce Elder?
Oh man, I know we say that prospect growth isn't linear, but pitching regression isn't linear either. I don't trust Bryce Elder at all. Yes, it was a fantastic start. Do you want to guess what his strand rate was in the last game?
Had to be huge, like 100%.
It was 100%.
Yeah.
Do you want to guess what his BABIP was in his last start?
Like 0.024, some crap.
0.063.
Oh my god. Yeah. So he ran really hot against the Yankees, and he didn't get punished for 3 walks. He only had 3 Ks. So to your point, like, 7 innings, 1 hit ball is undeniably great, but sometimes that's good fortune shining down on you, and it looks like that's what it was with Elder.
So then, that being said, these are 2 really good starts. You're going up against a Mets team that I could get a few strikeouts from, and the Giants, who are in San Francisco, who are not a very good offense. I think you got to roll with this. Like, I mean,
I think so too.
Like, you could also get absolutely shellacked like he did against the Pirates, right? Or just another one of these bad teams. But, like, if you can't use him here, you can't use him. Like, he shouldn't be on your team if you're not going to use him for this 2 steps. So
that's definitely true. This is one of those litmus test cuts where if you are looking at things and you say, I'm not going to use Elder this week, cut him, get somebody new. 10, 15s, 12s, yeah. What about 10s? Is he on the consideration chart? Or
absolutely.
Okay, so we're considering Elder everywhere.
Yeah.
I agree, by the way. I co-sign that. As frustrating as he's been, and I did pick him as a second half fade. I didn't think he'd fall apart, though. When I said second half fade, I'm like, I don't know, 4.50 ERA with a decent whip and good win opportunity because he's on Atlanta. Not an absolute shellacking in 4 of his last 7 starts. So we'll see where it goes, but I'm rolling with Elder here, too. Tanner Houck coming off the IL and is slated into the rotation right now. I don't know if this is 100% confirmed, but it lines up right now for at Houston and home to the Dodgers. So I'm pretty sure you're going to universally say no on that. So my main question on Tanner Houck then would be, are you interested in picking up and holding and then maybe kind of seeing how these starts go before using him? Because he's still on the IL right now. This is just a projected 2-step. What do you think of Tanner Houck both next week and in the longer term of the rest of the season?
I mean, I'm not super interested. Like, he's only gone 4 innings at the most in the minor leagues. So, like, you can't imagine that he's going to go 5 against the Dodgers and the Astros. I mean, maybe if it was the Pirates and the Mets, like, you go, okay, maybe I take the gamble that he gets to 5 in one of them.
Yeah, try to get like 9 innings of good work type of deal.
So, I mean, it's mostly about, hey, what do I think moving forward? And kind of looking at the schedule for next week, you know, if he does keep this 2-step schedule for this week, or for next week, for the week after, he would be at Kansas City. So, like, that's not a bad, like, hey, pick up and stash.
Can I point out, though, that they are cooking right now?
Yeah,
I don't know if it's going to last, but at least over like the last month or so, KC's offense has been really rolling. They played that excellent series against Seattle. That was a really riveting 4-game set there. KC was very game against that good Seattle pitching. So yeah, I would still want this like Tanner Houck at KC, but I just wanted to give KC their love in case we have any KC fans listening. Say, hey, at least prop us up when we're doing something good. But I would still be starting my mid-tier guys at KC all day.
And the hard part is, I mean, Boston's schedule is filled with their division the rest of the way. Like,
yeah,
I mean, and then you add in a series at Texas. So, like, how often are you really going to be using him down the stretch that he's worth a fab pickup?
Well, it's worth
I'm
pointing out. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. So go.
I was just going to say, I don't think he's worth it. I mean, like I think they're going to be very careful with him. Boston, while they're technically still in the playoff race, they're not really in the playoff race.
Yeah.
So like to me, I think this is a pass, and we just kind of watch and see how he pitches for next season, because if he's healthy, I think he's slotting straight into that rotation next year.
Yeah. Oh, I like Tanner Houck's fantasy outlook for beyond this year, because remember, he's coming back from the getting hit in the face.
Yeah.
So it's not an arm injury that he's coming back from. Now there can be things related to that where he's coming back from this, and there's some.
And he has had
concerns.
arm issues in the past.
Yeah, he has had other injury issues too, so that's worth pointing out there with Tanner Houck. But yeah, your point about the schedule, and it's worth mentioning, and what I was going to say was he's a 5.05 ERA too, right? So it's not like he's been so great that you're getting him back in there. Now I will point out 4.21 FIP, so the skills have been a bit better than that ERA. But I do think that this is a little dodgy right now, and given that this two-step is so tough, you might stash if you're really desperate, but I'm not going crazy here, because I also don't know that he's 100% going in the rotation, because they have Sale, Bayo, Cutter Crawford, Nick Pivetta, and James Paxton.
I think they said he is going into the rotation.
Okay, so who do you think's coming out then?
Crawford.
I think so. It might be Pivetta.
I mean,
I know he's been great, but I have some nerves that it could be him.
They could do the bulk reliever thing, because that worked really, really well with Pivetta prior to him coming back into the rotation.
Maybe he follows Houck.
Yeah.
Right? If Houck's only 3-4 right now, maybe you let Pivetta follow him, and then you're getting, ideally like 8 innings from those two. And I'd be fine with Pivetta as a follower. He doesn't need to be a starter. In fact, I prefer him as a follower. I just hope that they're still giving him bulk innings. So we'll see about Houck. He's pick-upable, but he's certainly not somebody I'm targeting heavily or chasing, because you can't use him in the short term of this week. Javier Assad and Drew Smiley both get trips to Pittsburgh or Detroit and Pittsburgh in that order for the Cubs. Assad, a little bit more intriguing to me. I brought up Smiley just because he had some goodness going early in the year, but let's focus on Javier Assad real quick. This right-hander has been in kind of a swingman role, put up some solid numbers this year, has been really sharp in 2 starts recently at Toronto and home to the White Sox. Is Javier Assad doing anything for you with the Detroit-Pittsburgh two-step, both in those pitcher-friendly ballparks?
Yeah, I mean, I think the fact that you're getting those 2 teams in those 2 ballparks, I think he's in play. He's the guy I picked up when I didn't think that Stroman was going to pitch this weekend. Now Stroman's not going to pitch, so I'm going to keep using Assad into next week. I mean, there's not a ton of strikeout upside here, but he's a pretty effective pitcher, and the fact, I do like the fact that he put up the good lines, but more importantly, he went 7 and 6 innings in both of these 2 starts.
The volume was really nice.
Yeah. Whereas Smiley has only gone 1 inning in each of his last 2 outings.
So he might not even be super stretched.
No. Oh, I mean, they probably don't care. I
guess he's stretched from pitching. They don't have to re-ramp him back up because of 2 relief
But I think there is a risk where he goes 1 inning or 2 innings, and that's it. It ends up being really a bullpen game with his name at the start as the starter. So no interest in Smiley, but yeah, I'll take a shot on Assad here.
Yeah, that's where I come out too. And again, I mentioned that Smiley had pitched really well to start the season. His first 13 starts, he had a 3.27 ERA. He was being trusted across most formats. Really close to a set it and forget it. He was pitching really, really well. But over his last 48 innings since mid-June, it's a 7.50 ERA with a 6.74 FIP. So he's earning damn near every bit of it with a home run issue and probably a few too many hits as well. Some of that on, a 3.46 BABIP, but some of that is just his fault, just his own lack of quality pitching. So I'm with you. Not much for Smiley, but plenty of interest in Assad, at least in 12s and deeper. 10s probably can avoid because there'll be better options.
Yeah.
What about Clevenger? He gets home twice, Seattle and Oakland. He's been a mixed bag for sure. The White Sox are just kind of nasty this year in general, and not in a good way. But his last 2 starts have been wonderful. 6 innings, 1 run, 7 scoreless against the Cubs. Is Clevenger doing anything for you?
I mean, he's got a 1.57 ERA since coming back from the IL.
Yeah.
It's mostly fraudulent, getting lucky, BABIP getting lucky in the strand rate, and really, really lucky in the home run rate. I mean, only one
since
home
coming back.
run yeah, given up, and he's got a sub 30% ground ball rate. So, I mean, I think there's a fair amount of risk here, but it, I mean, anytime you got Oakland on the back end of a two-step, I think you gotta just
You
roll
gotta
with
take a
it.
look.
So,
I think 15 team viability for Clevenger, maybe some fringe 12 team viability depending on what's available there. You know, it'll be a lower ranked situation,
yeah,
but like you said, Oakland on the board there, and he's a strikeout guy. You know, he hasn't had the strikeouts that we know from Clevenger over the years, but also his composite numbers this year: 326 and 125 ERA WHIP. It's not too bad. So yeah, he's a consideration in 12s and deeper for sure. 15s, I think you're pretty much rolling with him if you got him. Jose Urquidy's back. He gets Boston and a trip to Detroit. How do you feel about the control artist Jose Urquidy? Is he doing anything for you right now? Obviously, he's had a tough season, but he's been back. He's ramped back up. 5 innings last time out. Pretty good against the Angels, I might add. One earned, 7 Ks, no walks. Urquidy's been a guy I've loved in past years. This year it's been a bit of a washout type of year. Are you interested in him with Boston coming to visit and then him heading out to Detroit?
nope.
Not even a little.
Nope. I mean, I've never been an Urquidy guy.
That's
Never
true.
understood the love affair with him, and all he does is give up home runs. Like he's
What do
just
you mean
so
you never understood the love affair? What did he do in
never
21, 22? 381 ERA and 271 innings with a 110 whip. What are you not understanding? That's
with
good.
like 17 strikeouts.
7.4 K9. What's your point?
He's just boring.
Where was
and,
that
like,
energy for JP France 20 minutes ago? Because that's all
JP
he's
France,
doing.
JP France was free, like legitimately free. Like everybody got him off the waiver wire. He was not drafted anywhere. Like Urquidy was a guy where people were like, "Oh, he's gonna take another step," and people drafted him way too high.
No. Where was he drafted? I don't remember. Where was he drafted?
Maybe not as.
I don't know. I'm
maybe not
not
as
even
much
trying to
this
call
year,
you out. I don't remember. Maybe he
honestly-
was drafted too highly. But
I'll look it up.
it's fair to not be interested in this two-step. Boston does still scare me. I don't think they fully get the love they deserve as a pretty decent offense. They're not to be trifled with, in my opinion. So even with Detroit lingering there, I don't think I'm interested. Did you get Urquidy's ADP?
I'm working on it.
Okay. While you do that, I will set up Johnny Cueto. He's going to be going to
His
San
ADP
Diego.
was 265 this year.
That's pretty fair.
That's pretty fair, yeah.
That's pretty fair. But you know, it's been a washout year. It's been a flat out bad season for Urquidy. We'll see if he can salvage something down the stretch. Let's talk Johnny Cueto with the Marlins. He's at San Diego, home to Washington. I've always got a soft spot for Cueto. I don't just use him carelessly just because I like the player. But I do think there might be some 15-team viability if you're desperate, but that's really all I can get to right now because while he was showing some decent stuff when he first got off the IL, I do worry about the homers right now. He's allowed 2 in 3 of his last 4 starts, and he allowed 1 in the other one. So that's 7 homers in 4 outings. That's been the problem right now for Cueto. So I do have a hard time with this one because San Diego also scares me, even though they've underperformed. So I'm going to be out on this one, even though I've had some positivity about Cueto in the past. Does he give you any deep league viability, Johnny Cueto?
No, I don't think so.
We move on. Bailey Ober, this is just for shallow leagues because he's an easy start in 12s and deeper, I think. But in 10s, with his home run issue, it's at 1.3 on the year. I think there could be some consideration to maybe skip here because he goes to Milwaukee and then hosts Texas. And that second one against Texas is scary enough. That might push some people off in 10-teamers. And that's the only focus that we have here for Bailey Ober. Are you starting him in 10s next week?
I think so. I mean, unless you just have an amazing rotation with some really good matchups, I just don't know how you skip it. I know Texas is extremely scary, but I'm not like super worried about Milwaukee. And so I think you roll with it and just pray that it doesn't he doesn't get crushed versus Texas.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at too. I really like Bailey Ober, so I lean positive. I wanted to get your unbiased take first before I said, yeah, I love him. But no, I mean, he's allowed homers in each of his last 6 starts for a total of 8 homers in the 31 innings, and that's been an issue. KC, talk about how well they've been playing lately. They roughed him up. He gave up 11 hits to my Tigers too, which was bizarre. He had 9 strikeouts, 1 walk that game, but just a bunch of hits fell in. So I think I'm going with Ober in a 10-teamer. Hopefully Texas doesn't smoke you. If he dominates Milwaukee, then he'll build some cushion for the weekend. I can't believe this guy's on this list. I mean, I made the list, so of course I know that. But, he deserves to be. Let's be honest. Carlos Rodon has not been very good. He's expected to come off the IL and fit into this spot. That's the projection right now. He would get Washington and at Tampa Bay. Where are you at on Rodon right now? Because you want to talk about his flame out season. That's Rodon to a T. Are you interested?
This one's really tough because Washington is pretty good against left-handed pitching.
True.
And they're not a team that's gonna, like, you're worried about, like, oh, he's gonna give up a bunch of home runs or something, which has been one of Rodon's main issues this year. But, like, they can just BABIP you to death. Like, they just, and especially lefties. So, and then Tampa, I know there's a lot of turmoil there. They haven't played as well down the stretch as you would expect. But, I mean, for the, if you include the entirety of the season, they've been one of the best teams in baseball against left-handed pitching. And so, and what
can I ask you something real quick on that point, since you brought that up? How much do you put recent performance in versus full season? Because I do my SP chart and it has last 30 days, which I know is not the strongest indicator. So you'll see me like recommend somebody that might run counter to, like, oh, they're 4th ranked in the last 30 days, and yet I'm recommending the guy because it's like, KC on their surge or whatever. So how much do you take in recent performance, like Tampa Bay struggling? Because lineups change. That's why I think the last 30 days or the last 2 months, I think it has some value to show the evolution of lineups. But you also have to look at the bigger sample too. So where do you come out on that full sample versus recent work with offenses when judging for streamers?
I only care if there's been a major change in the lineup.
Okay.
Right? So, like, the trade deadlines happened, and, this team has traded away, the Mets have traded away a bunch of talent. And so, like, okay, now I care a lot more about that small sample than I would on a team that, like the Giants, who haven't done anything, didn't do very much at the trade deadline. I think samples like that, the more you kind of shrink them down, the less useful they are. And I think we've got almost a full season's worth of work to kind of work off of. And, when you're truncating it down in order to do a handedness or do a home park, I think you don't want to truncate it down even further, because then I think you're just getting too messy in terms of the splits personally. But I know a lot of people that disagree with me. Dave, who I work with on the Friends of Fantasy Benefits podcast, he really likes looking at 30-day samples for handedness. For me, I think it gets a little bit too messy.
Yeah, again, I think you really want to have the context for it too, right? Like when Judge was out and the Yankees 30-day samples started to change, I put some viability into that. I said, yeah, you're picking on them right now with Judge out. In fact, even with Judge back, the only thing that's changed is their OBP has gone up, and teams are just not getting beat by. They're saying we're going to let anybody else try to beat us. Judge, take your free pass. But anyway, I didn't mean to derail Rodon there. You did mention that Tampa Bay's been struggling against lefties recently, but on the season, they're still pretty good. Does that influence you enough to move off of him because Washington's also a little froggy? Or are you going to go with Rodon if he is indeed going to make this 2-step?
I mean, I think in 15s you got to. I think in 10s you shouldn't. Because, I mean, one of the things we don't have much info is, hey, how well has he really pitched in his rehab? Because he's done a lot of
dominated a sim game, apparently.
Yeah, exactly. And so,
I don't even know if he dominated. It was a 5-inning sim game. It didn't say if he dominated or not. He just didn't get more hurt.
We don't know how competitive that really is. Like, right? So I don't know if he's going to go deep enough in a game to even qualify for a win.
Rodon could get 8 innings here across these 2 starts.
So I think for me, it's a no in 10, a yes in 15s, and a maybe
coin
in
flip
12s.
in 12s. Yep, depending on what you got there. And I would lean no. I would look for reasons not to start it in 12s unless I was just backed into a corner. But I agree in 15s, you probably just don't have anything better. You paid premium price for him. And I know that shouldn't always drive things. Just because you paid a premium price doesn't mean that you're going to get money back on that just by starting him. But generally speaking, I'm getting him in 15s. What about Paul Blackburn? I know it's always tough to start an Oakland guy, so we'll put the caveat out that if you are in a wins fight and you're chasing, I don't think you can start any A because your win percentage probability is like 2. But he does get KC and a trip to the White Sox for Paul Blackburn. And again, I'll reiterate, KC playing better of late, but I'll take anybody in the Oakland Park, any offense I can take on. And then he gets to go to the White Sox, which just isn't scary. Paul Blackburn, amazing first name, quality pitcher. Are you starting him anywhere? 4.09 ERA and 150 whip on the season, though. But did throw 7 scoreless at Seattle. just yesterday or 2
Where
days
did
ago.
these strikeouts come from?
That's the
This
part
is
that I
like,
don't know. I
like
love that.
I mean, they like he's been a guy who's like, his entire career he's been like a mid-teen strikeout guy, and all of a sudden we're at 23% this year.
That's good. But no
Yeah,
corresponding swing strike rate jump. In fact, it's up
no.
point 0.2, which is like literally almost literally nothing.
And the contact rates are the same too. So like it's like I don't know where he's getting this. I mean, he's
Better
getting
sequencing, better put away pitches, for Paul Blackburn, maybe.
maybe paid off an umpire or two.
Perhaps, yeah,
Like
maybe found found the best umpires to say, hey man, give me those close calls. Come on now,
he's
I
getting
need these
he's
Ks.
getting people to chase a little bit more. So
That's good.
uh, yeah, maybe he's not giving up so much contact early on in counts. So um, yeah, I don't mind this one as long as you're not win seeking, because like you mentioned,
Yeah,
the A's don't win games. They're not allowed to win games. So like he's not gonna win any games. So if you're looking for just maybe a little bit of ratio help in some innings in a deeper league, obviously 10s and 12s is a no for me.
no, yeah.
But in a 15, I can understand the move. I have this picture of what Paul Blackburn is in my head, and I have a really hard time getting past that.
It's funny. I have a positive outlook on him, and it's weird how our perceptions are shaped, right? But I picked him up early last year when things were going off, like right after he got going, and so I got a lot of that good work. He ended up fading, and I'd long cut him because he got hurt, like with that finger issue. So like when he was getting blasted by 10 runs against Texas and whatnot, he was already well off my team. So I have a favorable outlook on Paul Blackburn that I want to make sure I don't let influence me too much. And you have a negative picture where you're like, I don't know this guy. So we're kind of in between here. I mentioned that 150 whip, which is pretty crazy. Even recently, when he's been surging over these last 30 innings with a 2.10 ERA, it's a 137 whip. So that's still like really crazy right now. He's surviving all these hits that he's giving up. I don't really know what to make of it. It's a 15-team consideration. That's it right now for Paul Blackburn.
He's also had a really, really high BABIP. So like maybe that whip should come down quite a bit, because he got a 360 BABIP. Like,
oh wow,
like that is unsustainably high. So he might actually get some positive regression in terms of his whip.
That'd be nice.
Forward. Yeah,
because then you could really feel more comfortable about going for it. But yeah, it's a 15-team consideration. Unless you're win seeking. And then our boy Zach Littell, we talked about him last week. He actually got pushed now. He was supposed to have a 2-step this week. It's now pushed into a 2-step this week. So we will talk about, or next week. So we'll talk about him again here. He gets a double home start against Colorado and the Yankees. Have you seen enough in the last week from Littell? Because you were a little cooler on him last week. Has he changed your mind at all after dominating your Giants in a revenge match?
I mean, no, he is who I thought he is, but he keeps outrunning kind of what he's doing. That being said,
dominant, dude, he killed the Giants.
Like, you couldn't ask for a better 2-step right here. You're getting the Rockies in, I think, the first game off of a homestand.
That's right.
Which is always what you want. And then the Yankees are, as long as you don't pitch to Aaron Judge, you're probably not going to have a bad day. So
don't let him beat you.
Yeah, so like I picked him up in my main event and this last week for the 2-step that was supposed to be this week. And I'm going to continue to hold him and just move it on into next week. So, do I think he is a good pitcher that this is going to turn into, like a usable fantasy asset long term?
Don't be so fast on that, man. I really do. Like, okay, it's a little different than the Jeffrey Springs thing, but I think we were saying the same shit about Jeffrey Springs. 4 or 5 starts in last year. Eventually, Jeffrey Springs' dominance jumped another level.
He was dominant. Like, you watched his start and you went, okay, I see this swing and miss. I see this dominance. And you looked at the numbers and you went, okay, I think what we had a hard time with Springs was getting past the stigma of who he had been. Like, oh, this is just a reliever. He's got some injury history and stuff like that.
Isn't that what's happening with Littell then, too?
Littell doesn't have the dominant stuff.
Not yet. The strikeouts are going up, though. And again, that is the difference here with Springs versus Littell, is that right away, Springs was missing bats at a clip. And by the way, he was also, remember this, he was being trusted for 5-6 innings right off the gate, or
Yeah.
right out of the gate. And we had Drew Rasmussen, who was still being like a 4 inning guy, and was like, has this Jeffrey Springs dude passed Rasmussen in terms of confidence? And eventually Rasmussen caught up, but that was the difference with Springs, was they immediately liked him as a 5+ inning starter, which was really, really cool if you had picked him up. So again, I'm not making a 1-to-1 here, but I'm just saying, we've seen 5 Ks now in each of the last 2 outings. I don't know. I hold out a little. I could never totally ignore the Rays doing something great. So if I look at Littell and I think there's no chance this is going to be viable beyond this year, then I see it's on the Rays and I say, I'm going to keep that door open that it could still be. That's all.
Here's the thing. If I saw a skill progression or a skill change, even in this short sample, right? So just like go down to the last 4 starts, because prior to that, you might have started some games, but he was going like 2 innings, right?
Yeah,
so, like,
it was mixed in type of deal.
So if I was looking and I was going, oh, okay, hey, that swing and strike rate is a lot better as a starter, or hey, he's not giving up as much contact as a start. It's exactly the same. He's got like a 9 or 10%, a 9.5% swing and strike rate. 87% zone contact is above league average. Like he's not getting like a bunch of like swing and miss stuff. Like this is who he is. Like he is who he is, and which is not bad. Like I think like the fact that he pitches in that park with that defense behind him, and with that organization, like maybe he can be a usable starter. But he's not a guy like that. I think is taking a step at all. Like I think this is. If they were healthy, like we would not be talking, even close to healthy, we would not be talking about Zach Littell.
True, but I think that's where I would go back to the Springs thing, because that was based on need too. They were backed into a corner. I don't believe they had a mapped out plan. Maybe they did, and it was enacted the way it was with Springs. But I feel like that was another thing that kind of happened out of necessity. So that part's fair. Zach Littell would not be starting, I don't think, if they were anywhere near healthy, and they've obviously been decimated. But I wonder if maybe you're overlooking the fact that he has a 2% walk rate. 10% swinging strike rate as a Ray, fine. Because he did have 3 innings with the Red Sox this year that actually they were really bad, so it does kind of dent the numbers a little bit. Not enough to freak out too much about it, but I'm really brought in by the big walk rate, or the low walk rate, I should say, from Littell, the 2%. It's under 1% as a starter. In 30 innings, he has 1 walk. 121 batters. So that part's crazy. And premium command like that, premium control, I should say, with good command, that can carry you. I think that can carry you enough. Like, you don't have to have great Ks. I don't know. We don't need to keep going in circles. You're not so much on Littell beyond this year. I'm leaving the door open. I also want to make it clear that I'm not like overly advocating for him. I'm just not as stridently against him as Justin is for next year. And we'll see what happens with the rotation. We know at least one guy won't be returning, though, in the form of Shane McClanahan. So,
we'll I mean, see. all 3 of those guys, right, are probably not returning, right?
Oh yeah,
Springs,
Rasmussen and Springs. Yeah, they'll all be out next year for most of the year.
Mm-hmm. So 469 xERA.
Okay.
I'll pass.
That's fine. That's fine. You will, and that's. All that is a different way of saying he doesn't strike a lot of guys out, though. That's all the xERA is, by the way.
I mean, I'll say right now, like I said, I'm using him right now. Like this is like just because I don't think a guy long term is viable, we don't have long term. We have 6 weeks left in the season.
That's all we care about right now.
And
exactly.
I want to win championships. And right now, Littell has got good matchups, but like I also wouldn't like. I'm not gonna like blink when I cut him in a week or 2.
That's fine
after this. So
that's fine. We'll revisit him in the offseason after another 6 weeks here, and we'll see if we care about him next year. Right now, you don't. Right now, I at least have the door open to maybe caring about Zach Littell, just because the Rays are so good at what they do. That's going to be an interesting rotation. I think these 4 that they have right now, Eflin, Littell, Glasnow, Savale, will be the big 4, and then they'll have to fill in. So as bad as it is with McClanahan, Rasmussen, and Springs out, if your top three is Eflin, Glasnow, Savali, that's not too bad. And then, depending on where we feel about Littell and who they get to replace, either replace him or add as their fifth starter, all of a sudden, despite missing three major arms, they could be looking pretty good. And Shane Boz could be ready for next year.
Yeah.
Because remember, he got TJ at the very end of last year, so he missed all of this year. He's actually going to get that closer to 18-month recovery.
Yeah.
So Boz could be an interesting player next year, Shane Boz.
Littell also, following the two-step, is at Cleveland. So you're keeping him for the next 2 weeks before you make a decision.
No, I'm totally with that, and I appreciate that. While you don't love him for the future, you're still riding with him right now, and that's where we're at.
Yeah.
We're starting Zach Littell. He's a consideration in 10s. He's a start in 12s and 15s right now with Colorado and the Yankees at home. Justin, great speaking with you. I hope you have a good weekend coming up here. Are you and Jason getting together on Sunday?
We should be, and then I have an in-house visitor next week, so we may have special guest Nick Pollock, who's going to
coming
be
to visit.
Staying at the Mason Murder Mansion for the weekend. So, we're gonna maybe. I haven't talked to Nick about this, but part of his rent payment for the weekend, I'm sure we'll be jumping on a podcast or two.
I think that's fantastic. So we'll try to work out the logistics on that. But have a good one, and I'll talk to you on Monday.
Take it easy.